I don't know how many of you are interested in planking a wooden ship. It's one of the main features of my life of modeling. This ship is easy to plank because it's ultimately going to be painted. So the detail underneath the paint, all it has to be is smooth. The normal procedure of planking, in the way I do it, is to start at the stern and work forward because the forward is always curved. So this particular ship, you have to step this up in order to accommodate the stern cabin. So I'll show you how you do this. Now this is all pretty smooth, so you don't have to bend the wood. You can do this without a power sander because I don't imagine most of you have one. I taper the bottom of the board on the back side. And at this stage of the ship, it's not very important, but it helps the planks to fit because you do have a little bit of curvature. I want to apply some glue on this plank here to hold it together. And it's rather messy. Also put your glue on the bulkhead behind it. Make sure you get your taper side down because I've done that and had to take them back off. Also, you want to step your joints at least one bulkhead apart. Now the way you put these nails in is with a drill and a pair of pliers usually. You'll notice this drill bit's very short. That's a broken drill bit. Most of my sailing ships have been planked with a broken drill bit because if you're trying to use a long one, you're just going to keep breaking it. And the wood is so soft you can use it. As long as it has a little bit of the drill left on the end of it, that works. If you're doing this, you'll have a large stalk of these little tiny nails. I usually do them by hand because the pliers are a little bit cumbersome. Start that in the hole. Make sure your plank is down flat. Now don't drive it all the way in because the nail head is not scaled for the ship. So you want to leave it sticking out a little bit so that you can cut that off later on. You just keep going down the line on your joint section. You want to kind of put a little angle to it so that it'll go over into the center of the bulkhead. Of course, you all know white glue cleans up with water, so it's not an issue to have white glue all over everything. I'm not being real precise with these nails because they're going to be painted over. When I do a ship that's a natural color, I do a little diagonal pattern of 2 nails because it looks better when the model is finished. There wouldn't have been 1 peg in each joint. This can seem to be a little bit monotonous, but I like to think of it as watching a flower grow, watching it bloom.
Yeah, I can see that.
After working on it for a couple of hours, you're going to look back and say, wow, that's looking pretty good. And don't worry about rough edges because you're going to have to sand this hole anyway. I just try to get it so it fits together real well and doesn't have any gap. My hardwood floor in my workshop is carpeted with these little nails. Generally, when you drop a nail, you won't find it.
Barefoot, you can find it.
Yeah, we find it with your feet.
I try not to go in there barefoot. Although that would be a good way to find it.
Photo etch the same way.
Yeah.
I wish they'd make a brass magnet for photo. There's the first plank. Now in the book, there's a note that shows this all cut off square, and there's a footnote in the box that says don't do that because it has to be tapered back to the rear cabin. Now I cut these pieces before we started here today for this side. The main object is to just offset your joints. It doesn't matter whether they're one joint or two joints or whatever, but you don't want all your joints on one plane because that's neither authentic nor good looking. If anybody's interested in buying one of these, you can get them from Matco. You don't want to know how much they cost. But owning a shop, I have the privilege of doing that. Don't start with the split joint because it's easier to hold it in place and get the nail in it this way and then go to the split joint after. Yeah. See, there's one section in between. This is kind of step back one section at a time.
Are these planes going to be painted?
Yeah, this whole thing will be painted. Now there's another, if you look real close, this is a double row here. Starting at the top of these gun ports, there will be another double row, and that's mahogany underlaying there. But it's going to be painted.
If you were going to stain these plates, would the glue be a problem?
The glue?
Yeah.
You want to be more careful with it then. You really need to wash it off because the stain won't go into it. That's a very good point. Once again, if you're doing a natural color, I use provincial stain with a very good effect to give it the age. That's what my deck is. And I actually provincial stained these before I finally decided to paint it.
Are you worried about losing a backside?
No, that'll be hidden. Doesn't matter. I double wall all of my ships like this, even though it doesn't tell you to in the book, because I'm just a detail freak. And to make it authentic, you've got to have a double wall for your gun port, because the real ship's
Doing the interval.
What's that?
Doing the interval.
That gets interesting.
Because you got to cut each piece precisely.
And it has to be right at the right height for the deck to lay on it so that it's sealed up.
How do you secure that interval?
It's glued.
It's just glue.
Yeah. You need to cut it very precisely so it's sealed.
It's tight.
And the same way with your gun port liner. It's been almost 2 years since I did those. I hope I can figure out what I did. As I remember, it took a lot of studying to get there. By the way, when you get a ship of this size, you're going to get anywhere from 3 to 6 bundles of wood like this. That's your parts treatment. There's usually some laser cut parts trees of the plywood, but 75% of the pieces in a wooden model like this are pieces you made. You're working lower on the hull where the real curvature is. This tapering becomes very important because you will have big gaps in it if you don't do it. And you have to be a little bit artistic because when you're going around a corner like that, it has to be tapered in 2 directions. Yeah, these down here are heat bend. I'm going to do a heat bend on this front. You can bend this basswood without heat, which she did on her picket boat, but it's really a lot easier to do it this way. You wipe that glue off pretty quick, it won't leave a stain. when I'm doing that on a natural boat, I usually have a bowl of water there and I just use my finger and wash it off. That's an almost invisible joint right there.
So all these bulkhead pieces you have built, laminated, notched, and everything.
These,
Yeah.
they're cut that way in the
They're
kit.
cut.
Yeah, it's laser cut. Here I'm using a bent nail, which really doesn't matter as long as you don't bend it hard. They're just soft metal nails, so that's why you don't try and drive them in without drilling a hole.
That's the difference in plastic modeling. I don't have a single hammer in my normal tools.
I hunted for a long time till I found this one that I really like. I don't remember where I bought it. It says Minicraft on it, so I probably got it from market.
furniture. It's like a furniture maker's hand. Holster.
Furniture making would be easy.
I mean, I meant a holster. Somebody driving through taxes.
One place where your glue can be critical is when it builds up on top like that. Because if you take a break and don't go right back over, you're going to have to file that off. Now,
I have not.
this is where I run into trouble is when I get out on the end.
And my drill.
I'm going to have a gap here, but that'll be easily filled up. Should have brought a file with me to clean that up. Well, that may cooperate. Almost push those in just by hand. The drill bit, by the way, for the nails in these kits is generally a .25 or .26.
I've got a piece of pre-cut something here.
You ever have to re-nail when you got to cut those nails off and have one come out completely?
No. Never been an issue. I put this in to soak before I left home this morning, so it's going to be really wet. Basswood generally needs to soak for 15 or 20 minutes. If you're doing mahogany or walnut, you need to soak it for at least an hour because it won't bend if you don't. You can take a piece of walnut and literally tie it in a knot if you have it soaked enough and heated right. I tapered that so it would fit up against here. This is more of a battering ram than it is a bow. You want to get an idea of where your bend has to be. Heat bending is a matter of patience. That's hard. I must have hit that with my foot. Once again, basswood doesn't take a whole lot of heat to bend it.
clothespin it to the bulkhead.
Helps to be a mechanic and have no feeling in your hands.
I burn my fingers so much I don't feel
That's what I'm
anything.
saying. It helps. The less feeling you have in your fingers, the faster that goes.
Yeah, this wood's actually too wet.
Of course, then you run the danger of nailing your hands to the mold.
It still burns when you get up against it.
Oh yeah.
I won't let her heat bend on her model because, for obvious reasons.
How often do you burn yourself with that?
Yeah. I purposely cut these a little bit long when I'm doing this curved piece and the last piece in the row. Because with the curvature, it sometimes isn't too long, which is what you see here. That piece was almost a quarter of an inch too long when I started. But there's your heat bent piece. And it doesn't really matter if it stays in place, you're going to nail it in place anyway.
As that piece dries, will it shrink at all and
This
form
one-
a gap?
This one may because it's so wet. As a general rule, they don't.
Now, did they use the same process on the real thing?
More or less. I don't know that they heat bent the wood, but they did bend it.
I wouldn't be surprised if the competition was so.
You can change the memory of wood by wetting it
I'd say just
and bending it. It'll stay where you bend it.
Have you ever had pieces that you had soaked and then glued on come off?
So she had some problems with her picket boat was a true plank on frame ship, and the frames were so fragile you couldn't actually nail the wood to the
plastic
frame. It had to be glued. So she did have some trouble with stuff coming with it.
So then
twisted, clamped it, glued it and everything. The next day, twisted it.
I guess I would bend it and then let it dry overnight and then re-glue it the next day.
You could do that. Fingers not picking these nails up too good today. I try not to drill the hole so deep that the tip of the nail is going to be clear in the bottom of the hole because it won't hold it securely that way. This is splitting a little bit, but that'll go away when it dries out and you sand it. Little splits and so forth in your wood are more authentic anyway because they were working with the same thing you were, and it behaved pretty much the same way in a larger scale. The front of this boat required an awful lot of shaping. For some reason, things just didn't seem to fit quite right. On this part over here, you can see where I have had to fill in. So there's a little more to it than just doing it, but if you figure once you're working with it, you'll know what to do. These are a wonderful little pin vise, by the way. Very comfortable to use.
Yeah, I've got pretty much great.
They'll hold just about any drill bit. They won't hold the little ones that I do for the gun barrels.
I can build that small. Actually, you can go smaller.
This is going to actually end up being a little bit too long.
And then my fingers need time to
I've got a pair of flush cut pliers that I use when I'm that far along.
Awesome.
That'll probably leave a little bit of a gap, but once again you can fill it in. One good way to fill a gap like that, especially if you're using a power sander, is to put a little bit of white glue in the hole, and when you sand over it, the sawdust will go in there and fill the gap. Looks very natural.
I can feel it.
I cut a little bit of too much of that off, so I've got too big a gap. That's how you do a row of planking. I can do the other side if y'all want to watch, but it does get boring. Kind of like watching grass grow.
The planking goes all the way to the top of that bulkhead.
Well, my object on this next step is to get the planking up here just high enough so that it's right underneath this next deck. And then I can go ahead and do my gun port and the inside planking and put the deck in here so I can cut the gun ports out and line them and everything. You don't want to get up too high because then you're fighting yourself. You can work through these gaps.
Yeah.
That's why in the directions they have you plank the whole hull and then go back and do the gun. But that's extremely difficult to do down in like that.
Now, is that part right there going to be visible at all in the back of those?
The back of this?
Yeah.
No.
I'm assuming that if it was, you would go in and clean up the glue that squeezed through the backside.
Yeah, you don't want to leave the glue in there if it's going to show. But I'm gonna have a double wall there. It's just like in here where I glued these, I was careful to keep the glue out of it. Now you're not really going to see that either when it's put together, but you will see it in the pictures I take of it for the show.
The tip about glue and the sanding, that's what we did when I was in the cabin. That's how we fill on stain grade stuff. That's how we did all the filling and sanding on him. Squirt glue into it and sand it, and it does a wonderful job.
Yeah, it really is
It's
a
a
good way
natural
to fill
filler,
it.
and it's the same color as the wood, and it'll stain without.
I don't even bother to try filling cracks in my hull until after I've sanded it.
Because you don't know which ones are going to be there.
The process of sanding generally takes care of it.
Yeah, it's a great